All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. This is Christopher Allen. We're a few minutes here before our start time as everyone gets settled in. If you have any questions, be sure to use the questions pane in Zoom. And kind of just to get us started, you certainly could type in the Q&A section where you're listening in from today. All right, North Carolina. We've got the chat pane and the Q&A pane that we'll be using in Zoom today. So as you're getting settled in, you might find both of those in front of you. I am calling in here from Minneapolis, where it is overcast. Yesterday was beautiful. We had a nice sunny day, and we're starting to lose our leaves. Fall has appeared.
And here we are in Sweden. We are having a little bit chilly day. It's been clear blue skies, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So, but last week it was a lot more. So it's starting to drop. And I guess it's fairly similar weather pattern.
Yeah, it's been 60s, and all of a sudden it just turned quite a bit colder.
We expect, now we are in mid-October, and we normally, at least in mid-Sweden, we get the first snow in early November, and the slopes normally opens up around 10th to 15th of November, so it's not far.
Not far away. Oh, shoot. Well, thanks to everybody who is joining us today. We're just a couple minutes here before we'll get started today, and I do appreciate you joining. If you have any questions for those who are newly joining, we're going to be using both the questions pane as well as the chat pane. And as you're getting comfortable and set in, make sure you can find both those, because we'd sure love to take your questions and have a good conversation here today. We'll give it just a minute or two more and get started. All right, well, I see that it is the top of the hour, and more folks are rolling in, so we'll get started. And of course, again, if you have questions, please don't feel shy about using the questions pane or the Q&A pane here on Zoom, and we'll do our best in the flow as possible to answer questions and have a good conversation. So today we're going to be talking about the future of corporate coaching. And again, we're going to be using that questions and answer pane. And, you know, if you've got a question that you think is relevant for everyone, I certainly invite you to switch that over to all panelists and attendees. I think it's nice to see the questions that others are asking. If you have a question about how to use Zoom, or the other technology, to make sure that you can see the slides and all that sort of stuff, certainly switch that over to just panelists, and we'll do our best in back channel to answer questions as we're going along. And we've got support here, so plenty of folks who can answer. Let's start with our agenda, and then we'll go into who are the speakers for today. But I'm going to pass it over to Peter and give us a little bit of a rundown about what we'll be talking about.
Yeah, today will be an exciting session. And first of all, we're going to give you some background of Allen Interaction and Sharp Learning Solutions, and also the collaboration between our companies. And then we're going to look into why be part of the growing corporate coaching, which is happening around the world actually today. We're going to look into the details of benefits of becoming a certified Sharp coach with access to skills inventory assessments, online e-learning content, what we call application activities. We'll go into details of that, and accessing much other material. We'll also showcase a little bit how can your customers access online training and the coaching, and answer the question, how do you generate your own revenue? And finally, look into how to become part of the Sharp Coach Network, which is a global network of coaches, and what are the next steps? Are there investments required, and what is that? So that is what we're going to cover today.
All right, and I'm Christopher Allen. I'm with Allen Interactions. I'm Chief Strategy Officer here, and really my role is, helping our organization figure out what should be the right mix of offerings and solutions that we bring to market. We've been in business now almost 30 years, probably most famous for our background in instruction. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we've also got ties over into engineering services and strategic consulting services. And we found Peter to be just a really great partner over at Sharp Learning Solutions. And I'll pass it over to Peter for a little debrief on his background.
Yeah, hello, my name is Peter. I'm a Swedish guy, and I am the CEO of Sharp Learning Solutions. Sharp Learning Solutions, as a tech company, as a blended learning company, has been on the market for 6 years, even though Sharp Learning Solutions in itself has a longer history as one of the leading companies within. My background is very much from Swedish stock-listed companies. I've had the fortune to work actually all over the world. I've been chairman in 15 different countries in all parts of all continents. And that has given me a good insight into leadership development, the sales, the marketing, and of course, how to run the services in companies, which we are sharing now to others.
Sure, and I'm going to launch a little poll because we're curious about who is here. So this first one, we're curious a little bit about what are your job responsibilities and what do you think your main domain is, and we'll use this to tailor our presentation here today. All right, thanks. We got some votes coming in. This is great. Give it just a few more seconds and we'll close the poll. All right. Well, it looks like we got just about a little more than half of our audience are what we'd consider L&D professionals, and we've got a mix of executives and managers and folks who are in charge of in operations, and so that's terrific. All right. So let's jump right into content. Allen Interactions, as I was saying, we've been around for about almost 30 years now, and we serve the best clients, I think, on the planet. All organizations that you would know, and that history really is built off of our founders' books. And so we've written a lot on the subject of process and what makes a really good learning product. And over the years, we've provided consulting services to help organizations build their own L&D departments. And of course, that's turned into building custom learning projects for our clients, and we do that a lot. I'm proud to say that we've won a lot of awards. We've also taught a lot of classes through ATD and through the Allen Academy and other places to help learning professionals build the best products possible. For those of you who might have been following us for a while, these are some of the books that we've offered, including Michael Allen's Guide to E-Learning, which is up on its 2nd edition, and Leaving Addy for Sam. And of course, both of those and all the others have been the basis for lots of courses that we've taught. And Peter, why don't you talk a little bit about Chart Learning?
Yeah, so let's look into the background and some of the key differentiators. So Chart Learning Solutions, we are 100% focused on soft skills. And what do we mean with soft skills? Well, that is when we are talking about behavioral changes for individuals. All of our areas are based on what we call the research competencies. So if you're looking into a leadership development programs, then there are 12 core competencies which every leader needs to have in order to be or to become successful over time. It's actually becoming a 13th now with the emotional intelligence moving into the core competencies. We develop all our content in the US for the global market. We have a global presence. One of the unique differentiators is that we deliver all of our content both in what we call e-learning format and in the blended learning format. Because when we are looking into behavioral changes, we need a more thorough learning process to make sure we get the learning transfer. We are today a Swedish company, but with a US heritage. Chart Learning Solutions was founded and started in San Diego, and it was acquired in end of 2017 to become Swedish. Our content, which is then built for the coaching along, is in a catalog, and today we were in the top 20 companies as a watchlist company from the training industry. We got 5 Brandon Hall awards, 4 from the US and 1 internationally for outstanding customer outcomes. We are supported by Microsoft, where all our technology is run in New York on the Azure cloud. And there are some additionals on top of that.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been working on together is figuring out, what shifts are happening in digital education, and how can a partnership between Allen and Chart really make things go. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the real benefits that I think Peter's catalog and offering have. But from our perspective at Allen, we've really been looking for a way to take a real value-based solution and with some tweaks, turn that into something that really resonates with the culture that might be adopting off-the-shelf content and lightly customized content from Chart Learning across all of these different soft skills. So we've partnered together as a reseller of Chart Learning's solutions, but we're also really proud to say that we've got an opportunity together to customize that material. So you can take something that's really affordable, that offers a lot of value, and then make tiny tweaks to it so that your students believe that this isn't necessarily just off-the-shelf content on important topics, but is really reframed in the same language that an organization uses, so that it sounds and students are able to recognize themselves not only in the content, but where they would use it. And I pull up the Serious E-Learning Manifesto for a couple of reasons. One is, in looking at off-the-shelf content, I think most off-the-shelf content really falls into this bucket of what we would think of typical e-learning, learning that's very content-focused, that's attendance-driven, and is mostly about, are we able to get students to really retain some knowledge, and not so much on performance. What are we expecting students to do? And as we'll talk about today, I think Peter and his team have put together an interesting solution that falls far more into the category of serious e-learning or serious learning rather than just a typical one and done solution. And coaching is a significant part of that, where we can take something that, again, is really value-based and space it out over time, put together individualized challenges for students, and really focus on the performance. So, you know, and looking for a partnership and off-the-shelf material, this really has been our guide. Is can we find material that's likely to be viewed in the marketplace as a serious offering and not just one that checks the box. So we've got one more poll here. Let me pull that up and go to poll number 2 and launch this one. So here we're interested, kind of where in the spectrum is your organization with respect to launching and using digital learning? All right, terrific. We got results coming in. This is fantastic. Give it just a little bit more time. All right. Thanks so much. So look, predominantly, it looks like our audience here today, relies on a blend. And so we're using face-to-face, and I imagine that means we're using Zoom and other technologies in order to connect with others and a bit of e-learning. Not so many at the top here who would consider themselves digital learning natives. And that's great. One of the things that I've noticed in conversations with folks over the last few months, kind of the beginning of COVID times, is that, you know, there are still quite a few organizations out there, surprisingly large organizations that aren't necessarily using an LMS or leveraging digital learning as a way to be the primary deliverer of new experience and skills. So let's talk a little bit about today's learning landscape, and I'll pass it over to Peter.
Yeah, so when looking into soft skills side, there was a research which you may have seen last autumn from Stanford University. It also came out from LinkedIn, that soft skills has become the #1 training priority amongst the CEOs. So we have been into for many, many years, and people sometimes ask me, so how did you identify that trend? And you know, sometimes the trends just jumps on you, but we are in there. And the interesting thing here is that 75% of job success actually depends on soft skills mastery, and only 25% of technical skills. And if we're looking very much now on the younger generation coming into the market, they are tech savvy, they're brought up with tech, they've been doing all the gaming and so on. And clearly coming into organizations where someday you need to look at your communication skills, your presentation skills, your influencing skills, your negotiation skills, your ethics, and all that, how that comes into play. And I think that is one of the reasons why this is moving up. And this is not only in the US, it's actually coming all over the world. Soft skills is important, and it's not to be done as a normal e-learning training where, because it's changes in behaviors. Yes.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that kind of rolls into a number of other reports that we've looked at. This is a little bit older, from LinkedIn Learning Workplace report, about the types of learning that organizations are investing in. And, you know, when asked, you know, what are we looking for when an organization actually invests in a training program? And, you know, they had, I think, a great question, which, you know, they asked CEOs, you know, what are you really looking for? And, you know, over 90% said real business impact. When we're investing in training, we're looking for something to change and for something to happen. And less than 8% are currently seeing real impact from the investments that they're making. And that's just kind of on the skin level deep type of business impact. And if they ask a little bit further about, what sort of clear measures are you looking for? ROI is right up there, and less than 4% of CEOs were reporting that from their training expenditures were they seeing real impact. And so this means that we need to do something different. And I think that, again, as I was alluding to before, the culture of learning inside an organization, I think, is really important for no matter whatever it is that you're delivering. If the student has the belief that this next event or this next program that I'm about to enroll myself in is one that's going to change my own performance, then they're going to lead into the content no matter what it is. But if they have this belief that, this is just going to be a one and done, it's going to take me an hour, I'm going to try to get through it as fast as possible so I can go back to doing whatever it was that I was doing before. If they hold that belief about training at your organization, there's probably little chance that anyone's going to see business impact, which is why some of the things that the Chart platform really has to offer, I think, is interesting. So let's jump into coaching, and I'll ask Peter, what really is a corporate coach?
Well, a corporate coach for me is someone, first of all, I believe you need to have the experience, the background. I mean, you could actually have a background and a certification as a coach since previously, where you have being a life coach, similar. You also have managerial experience or training experience in background. But a coach is actually someone who secures growth of individuals and making sure companies achieves results moving forward, depending on whatever is set up as the objective as such. It's a person who has big ears and is great on putting questions. What you're going to see here today, where we make a clear differentiation from a traditional coach and corporate coach, is that if you're going to make a difference in the leadership development side, in sales training, in team performance, in services training, you need to have a toolbox with you. A toolbox which actually can address the specific areas within each of these competencies. And that is what we're going to provide you with to become a corporate coach, in difference from being a life coach or where you only have the questions. Here you're going to have a complete toolbox along. And that is really what we believe is important. Yeah, it's coming in here. It is really interesting to see here. It will be an important part of our organizational culture in the future, and that is coming. And the corporate coach is going to be a very important instrument for organizations.
Fantastic. All right, and then one more. So this next one is about, what sort of experience have you had with coaching? So we're mostly in the camp of it's going to be important or a clear part of our future. I'm curious, how many folks out there have had experience with corporate coaching? Fascinating. Okay, so we've got a cool spectrum here. We've got a number of people who are corporate coaches, and then kind of at the bottom thinking about becoming a coach and not really sure what a coach does, but not not so many in the middle. And this was something that I've been pretty curious about is, how many people in L&D, out in our network, have been part of a formal coaching program. And it looks like not very many. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. All right. Peter, you want to talk a little bit about the toolbox?
Let's talk a little bit about the toolbox on a high level, because this toolbox, and you're going to see there's additional things coming up here, and this is really for you to become and have a broader base when working. First of all, we're going to talk about the performance assurance system. Some calls it the formula. And that's Charles' learning methodology to reach outstanding results, for example, in developing leaders. And it's a more comprehensive learning methodology where you actually mix the best of the two worlds here, the digital world and the human world. And then we have the short online content, which is all based on research core competencies. And this is important. Which are best practices in leadership development, in the sales side, and the customer service side, and building high performance teams. It's today internationally awarded and recognized, and it's built using the latest development tools from Articulate, the Software 360 on Bryson Storyline. And it is, as you're going to see, if you have seen one course in there, you're going to recognize the same premium interface in all of the plus 250 courses out there. And the aim is to have very clear learning objectives and outcomes. It should be visually attractive. It should be a standardized delivery, but customizable. And you're going to see here, there's 2 levels of customization. And one of them, we are giving access to our certified coaches. So you can actually work with the customized solutions to your customers. Then, of course, there has to be a delivery mode to the customers. And you can start really any training by tomorrow by using the Training Accountability Platform. The Training Accountability Platform is our platform which is built for ease of use, scalability, the blended learning delivery as you're going to see. And it's powered by Microsoft Azure Cloud in New York with all its security. And then assessments is an important piece here, and there are standard assessments which we'll go into. Maybe you can go into the next slide and we'll move on to that.
Yeah.
So this slide here is about the performance assurance system, and that is really how every course is built up and the methodology the coaches would follow. And of course you can mix and match small, but this is, we know, gives the results. And it starts with assessments. So let's take a leadership development assessment. That is going to give you as a coach, and it's going to give the individual the answers, what they are stronger at and what are their improvement areas. In difference from other type of assessments, we are only measuring the skills, the core competencies. So if they are good at communication and so on, does not really come in. We are looking at the 12 core competencies and matches that. We can also consolidate the assessments for a line of business division or a company. So we are seeing a learning prioritization. So from an organization perspective, we can say, okay, these are areas which has to be mandatory through all employees. And on top of that, we can build personal learning journeys for individuals so they can have their own development. Then, Christopher, you've been into the personal mastery here.
Right.
Should you go into a little bit, how do you convert knowledge into skills?
Sure. There's so much about this graphic that's in front of us that I think is really interesting, and this quite honestly is one of the biggest differentiators that the chart has. And I think it's a good pattern. If you're not using off-the-shelf material, I think there's great things that L&D professionals, and we know there are a bunch on today, can use and think about, creating a framework for your own work. So they've kind of gone, above and beyond in this upfront assessment piece in order to lean into individualized learning. And so, with an eye on time, and I think, all of us in COVID times have realized how precious time is to each of us. They've got a nice lead in here to giving potential students just the material that's really going to be impactful to them. So you can cut some of the material that students already have mastery over and drop them into areas where they need some extra help. And so
let's move to the next slide and look into that, and then we'll go into the personal mastery afterwards.
Sure. Sounds great.
I think you have a good point here. So there are actually 5 assessments available out of the box: the leadership assessment, something called the sales cycle management assessment. And the sales cycle, that's really the complete sales process for any company, from the prospecting, going through to how to put up the questions, the listening, negotiation, to closing, and how you build references, all the way through. And on top of that, you can add the company's sales methodology. Thereafter, you have sales self-management assessment, and that's really going to the soft side of the individual for the leaders, senior people, and when they've gone through the sales cycle management. And you have the customer service cycle management and customer self-management. And if we look at the next slide, it's interesting to see, because it's a self-assessment. And this is a person who has done the leadership development skills assessment. And you get the answers directly back. And here you can see a person scoring high in ethics and problem solving, critical thinking, but lower on rewards and recognition, product management expertise. And every individual, it's not that important if they score high or low on the top, but the interesting thing is actually the spread here. And seeing, because every individual knows, where they are stronger and where they are weaker, and this becomes a really great tool to do the dialogues to start the training. So let's take them into the personal journeys and personal masteries.
Yeah. So you've got kind of 3 main modalities of learning opportunities. There's the asynchronous e-learning component that you've built in Rise, which I think it looks really nice. I think most L&D professionals would be really proud of how that looks and how that integrates within a larger curriculum. And that's broken up into micro lessons and gives you a good foundation of the topics, where they apply, and really what they are. And then that moves into application activities. And on top of the e-learning components for those, and it sounds like most of our audience today is really leveraging blended learning, doing a mix of e-learning and face-to-face. There are companion activities that go with each one of the micro lessons. And here's where we really start to see opportunities for students to reframe the skills back into how would they apply them, how have they seen others apply them on the job, and start to do some introspection about where do I see these skills taking my own performance. Those materials then can be used in a couple of different ways. One is, you can go back on your own, which I did when I went through the chart coaching program. But you can also use them in peer groups. And so you take those same materials and those same activities, and you can do, paired activities, 2 people, in teams working back and forth. And then the third set is coaching material that then follows along with the e-learning and the application activities, so that you've got opportunities for students to space out their activities and their practice with each one of these skills over multiple modalities and over a longer period of time.
And I should mention then we have also the possibility to add into learning communities. So if you're running a sales training or leadership training, you can gather those people in from our technology in learning communities. after each course, and we're going to showcase how this works, each course here has the application activities, and it ends, the recommended way is to end that with what we call an accountability meeting. And that's really where you gather your students. Depending on what they're training, it can be an individual coaching session or it can be a group session. We run these totally today on Zoom. We use the breakout rooms fully, and it works great. And the important thing here is when a student is able orally to explain what they've learned and how they're starting to apply it, then we actually see what's coming. So the accountability, that word, that's built in from day one. When they start with the assessment, the coach is starting to give feedback, the manager is looking at it. And we can measure the journey and give feedback, listen, and they send the application to you as a coach. You can give feedback, and then we have the accountability meetings. It's all built in, and it's a beautiful way to get the individuals to grow.
I think, there's often, this gap between I can practice and I can do something in a real safe, confined setting to I'm starting to use these skills out in the real world. And I think one of the things that's pretty cool about your application activities and the accountability meetings is there's a good framework to start to uncover for each individual student what might be blocking their performance, and a performance that they know how to do pretty well. And it could be as simple as, there's I know how to do it, I know when to do it, but there's something that's blocking my ability to have confidence in doing this particular skill right now. And I think both the application activities as well as the coaching sessions can help unlock that in a pretty quick and affordable way with the student population. I think that's interesting. Peter, why don't you?
Yeah, I'll be happy.
Material here.
Yeah, so let's look here. Here's the negotiation training, introduction to negotiation and strategy. And you're going to see here when we go into this, a core competence. So negotiation is a core competence within the sales cycle management. And within each of the core competences, there's always 5 courses. See what it looks like. It's a very nice view in there. You can see there's 9 lessons within this. And each and every course takes approximately 15 minutes if you do it from A to Z. Having said that, a course negotiation is about a 1-day work when you do the application activities and all that stuff. So that's what it is. And have you done one, the learners is going to recognize themselves all the way through, which makes it a very coherent presentation. Let's look into the application activities. They are incorporated into each and every course, and they are what we call an editable PDF. So here they can work with and write, and the questions are formed in a way so they have to apply it to their work situation or their private situation, depending on what's most correct. But as a certified short coach, we also give you access to all these documents in a Word format, which means that you, on top of this, can add on, for example, scenarios. So if you're working with the manufacturing companies, the sales team there, you may want to put in scenarios for their next day. You may working for a telecom company, and then you need to change the scenarios on how they apply it. So it gives really a semi-customization with you as a coach, and you have access to all of this material, doing that to the customer. And let's see here what we talk about, where you get your coaching possibilities. You're going to have access to more than 250 courses. This is the technology which will be available to you. They call the Training Accountability Platform. And as a user, you log into the dashboard, and there you have your program. This is the 12 core competencies from the Leadership Development Program, which is set up as a standard and a best practice. Having said that, if you're running another company, you get whatever you want here, because we can mix and match exactly as the need is for that company. You can also see the circle here, which corresponds to the lifelong learning journey. You start in the home base, where you are, you get help, training, you get into a challenge, and then you move to a prize. You get the rewards of doing that training, and you end up on a higher level and can get on to your next learning journey. On top of the screen, as you're going to see here, you're going to have the blended learning courses. You may want to mix with some e-learning. And what is e-learning in our world? Well, that could be a compliance training. If it's a leadership training, you may want to have, for example, harassment training in there, and that's a typical e-learning. They just have to do it. So you can mix and match here how you want. We always put up the coach here because that's part of the accountability. So when people know they have somebody to stand up to, they just perform so well. So that's shortly about how that is set up. So here we can see the leadership development, and now you can see here is the 13 core competencies because emotional intelligence has been added into it. Each of these here, time management, that's a core competence. And you can see here is 5 courses. If we go to the coaching and mentoring, it's another core competence. There's another 5 courses. And this can be mixed and matched and put together in, for example, in new curriculums. So yeah, that's
so you've got the core competencies are listed here as the blue top label.
Yeah.
And then, so if we go under time management, there's 5 bullets. Each one of those bullets then represents there's assessment material that leads into it, so you can figure out whether or not this is something that a particular student needs. Then that bullet also refers to there's micro e-learning lessons that go with it. There's application activities that go with it, and there's backup coaching material that goes with it. So you've got that complete set of tools for each one of those individualized bullets all the way across.
Yeah. And what's also interesting here is that here is such a great flexibility. So not only can we put together any program or curriculum based on the core competencies, but each of these courses are actually working as a standalone, but they belong to that core competence. So if you're working with a larger corporation which has very specific needs, you can actually put together whatever they need. These courses are also available in SCORM formats. So if it's a larger corporation having their own learning management system, then it can actually be uploaded and also customized into their environment.
Here you've got another slide showing sales management laid out in the same dashboard fashion on your learning management system.
Correct.
Right.
And let's just look around a little bit on what will be available for you. So here we're on the sales cycle management. And as you may realize already now, when you do coaching, and it's quite clear, normally you have leadership experience, you may have a sales management experience or operational experience from, so you're going to have your own core competencies, but it's quite clear you cannot cover everything. So the way you run it, if you run a sales training in an organization, is that you are always one step ahead of them. So you do the training, and then you get the application activities sent to them. So you're gonna get quite a lot of information on where are the needs and what are their challenges, because your role as a corporate coach is actually to bring the understanding to the individuals. So you don't need to master everything in advance, because you get trained also on the run. And since you understand how the performance assurance system works and so on, you have it all accessible to be able to coach really on any of the courses.
So we've got a few more slides here showing the depth of overall curriculum that's available.
I'm going to mention, whilst you do that change, we're going to get into the building performance teams. If you just roll on here, that's a newly launched program. This one, every company today is run with a numerous of projects, because that's the way you run companies to move it forward. And we have great project leaders who knows everything about milestones. This is really about getting those project teams and other teams to work really effective. So when you mix that skill with how to run a team, then this is the courses to do that and how you coach that team moving forward.
A couple more. Kind of before we get here close to the end and the additional tools that are available, I think we've covered a bunch of things that are available. You've got the really nice connection of material that's available off the shelf that covers, and we just looked through that full catalog together, and that follows the assessment component, the ability to mix and match so that you get an individualized delivery, the e-learning micro lessons, the application activities, and the coaching material. You know, for some of our audience that's available, that might be something that you might just want to take, and that is something available through Alan and Chart. There's also then this larger conversation that we're having about coaching, and we're going to talk a little bit now about, you know, how to become a coach and where that fits. And I think, you know, there's then a third layer, which is if your organization is looking to install coaches, there's a nice framework and base here to take and lift and install coaching as a core competency inside your organization. And that goes above and beyond just this material on soft skills, but, you know, throughout performance and inside an organization. So Peter, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the materials that are available for coaches, and then let's wrap it up with questions.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll take one of the slides also. So one of the great benefits, you've seen a lot of the toolbox there, but the coaches, the certified short coaches, also becomes part of the Short Coach Network, which is an international fast-growing network of highly competent people. That is freelancers who are consultants. It's from the companies, from L&D organizations, and it's through our partners. And there is quarterly meetings, and they exchange information, they exchange best practices. They have, we were running how to become a successful coach, for example. We do record that. And the recordings, for example, that becomes part of the Dropbox, which you get access to also, where you have access to the assessments, you have access to case studies, all the brochure material and catalogs, and so on. So that is part of the delivery of becoming a corporate coach. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Global network. So what does it take then to become a certified short coach? To the right, we have the certificate. That's a woman, Jane Sillis. She was previously a customer of ours. She implemented the short training. First, she started off with the leadership, and then they moved on to the sales side, and then they moved on to the customer services side. And that company has grown so successfully. So she concluded that she wanted to build her own training company and became a gold partner of ours, and is highly successful. If we look what it takes to become a certified coach, it's about 15 hours training, which we put out over 2 months. It's about 3 times 2 hours training, depending on the questions, can be a little bit longer, but about. Then there's own and what we call buddy work. So we pair people together, and that work is about 8 hours. You're going to go through our coaching and mentoring training. We're going to go through the GROW methodology and so on. And that ends up with a individual personal examination where you showcase that you master the methodology and all around that. And then, of course, you ask, so what does this really cost to be part of that? And for the very first time, we are launching the subscription model into this. And it's $169 USD, which is about 1 hour coaching per month. 1 hour coaching, depending what you charge, it's $150 per hour. That is what you pay to be part of that. And after that's 49, which is about then 20 minutes of coaching per month. You can also have a one-time fee, then it's $19.95, and then it's $29 per month after that. Yes. And how do you generate revenue? Well, today we have shown all the tools. And being a coach, that's really becoming also a consultant. And all revenues you do from your services, that's yours. It may be that you are connected with Allen Interaction and work in projects through them, then they will be the overall responsible, and then you may negotiate in there. But in any case, you run yourself through your contacts or through your company, that's your revenues. What we do, we provide you with the tools to make that happen. And we train you how to become successful.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is so fascinating about the setup that you have with, you know, e-learning application activities and coaching is for inside an organization. Now you've got tools that you can really track back to KPIs. So instead of just, you know, did we run enough people through training? Did they complete it? Did they get an 80% score, you know, through the LMS? And have we certified that they have the knowledge? This really is where organizations can help make that leap with people who are actually performing, and be mindful that, you know, your coaching sessions are an opportunity for you to help continue to tweak and tune the actual performance so that you're marching towards the types of overall goals that you're looking for. You know, so there's kind of cool options here for someone who wants to grow their own independent learning and development business, but the same material works for inside a larger organization for them to really be marching towards the reason why they invested in training in the first place, which is they're hoping for business impact and to make a real change. So together, we've got a coaching program that's going to start here in November. And there's a couple of sessions and details here. After the webinar, we will follow up with a recording of this material. And if you're interested, we've got some applications that you can go through and see whether or not coaching is right for you. We put together this as part of an offering that we're really starting to extend through the Allen Academy. And I really do see coaching as one of the kind of key core competencies for L&D going into the future. I think it fits within an instructional design professional's career path to start thinking about these different modalities, how they're going to interface and work with other business units to make sure that the learning experiences and practice that we're providing continues to transfer into the activities that leadership and managers of those folks are applying. One of the worst things that could happen is you upskill your workforce. They now have the skills to do the new thing that you're really hoping is going to make business impact. And when they get back on the job and they start, you know, working and trying to apply those things, that managers and or their coaches are saying, well, it's not the way that we do things. I think this model of attaching coaching to change management and to the end of a more formalized learning program is a nice way to set up an organization for success. And so you'll be finding more information about the certified chart coach program through the Allen Academy and through our partnership together.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, we've held you to just about 10 minutes short of a full hour. Peter and I will stay on to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to shoot us a note through chat or through the Q&A panel, and we'll answer those for a few minutes. Otherwise, really appreciate you joining us today. Peter, any other thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, here's one question. Is it a 360 self-assessments? Is self-assessments as such? That's the answer to that. Looking at the chats.
Yeah, so I think that was referring back to an earlier part of our presentation, Peter, where they're asking about the self-assessment component.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those different areas that you have outlined in the catalog really is a self-assessment, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, that's great. It's lovely to be part of this today, and we look forward to hearing from you. And you may put up any questions you may have. Send an email to me or Christopher or the team. I'm certain that you will get some additional information after this session also.
Fantastic. Oh, there's another question here, Peter. Is there any global comparison?
Yeah, that's a good question. You mean benchmarking? Yeah. We actually call it industry average. Yes, because there is that benchmark in there. It's not all that true though, because it's our database as such which becomes the industry average, and there are some 8,000 comparison data in there. So it's not a true industry average as such, but it's a rather large mass of data, and that is international. Yes, so every company and individual get that comparison also. Absolutely.
Nope.
And no, not only on assessments. That is part of the overall. So part of the training. But you can, of course, use the assessments as such. That's not a problem.
Well, terrific. Those were great questions. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Oh, maybe one more. Yeah. So there's a question about somebody here who already is a corporate coach and has a management firm.
We could connect you to many the same situation as you in the Chart Coach Network. We run the next certified chart coach. It starts on the 2nd of November. It's 8:30 Central Time. And that's when that course starts. And that's if we are certified by ICF. No, we are not certified by ICF. However, it's great when our coaches are certified by ICF. We are providing the toolbox for the coaches, and of course we have the coach training, since coaching and mentoring is part there, and so on. But we provide the certifications from Chart, and it's an addition to traditional coach training.
I think that question really does point out how popular coaching in L&D is becoming, and certainly a strong component of what I think will be core competency of the L&D professional here going forward.
Yeah. Do you provide mentoring certification? I prefer strategists that mentor some executives. Well, as part of the Certified Chart Coach training, you will go through our coaching and mentoring training as such. So it's part of that training. And you, Christopher, you've rather recently become a Certified Chart Coach.
Yeah.
And maybe you would take a run on that.
Well, yeah, we covered a number of things between, mentoring across divisions as well as peer mentoring. And I think, as someone who is a professional strategist and working with other executives, I think there's kind of three components of material that in the Chart Certified Coach program would be important or valuable to someone providing that overall service. I agree. Another question here about sample of assessment reports. Is that something that you offer, Peter?
We can always print out an assessment report, both from an individual and then what it looks like when you get a consolidated report. Maybe you have that contact point, Christopher.
Yeah.
And then we can do that.
Certainly something that we can offer, and we've experimented with taking assessment data like that and making it very visual so that a student has an opportunity to see the types of things that they're really good at and things that they're looking to improve and how they are setting those goals in something that's really easy and visual to see, not just a simple spreadsheet or chart. Yeah, and I think we can connect with you afterwards so that you can see some samples of that for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we are running to an end here.
Yeah, fantastic. These questions have been great. Well, again, thanks everyone for attending. I appreciate the dialogue here that we're having at the end and an opportunity to chat with you again today, Peter. Been a great partner and looking forward to doing more things in the future together.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.